The emergency session of the Galactic Council had been called without warning. Ambassador Sarah Chun stood in the crystalline chamber, surrounded by representatives from 47 different species. Each alien delegate floated, sat, or slithered in their designated areas, their various forms creating a rainbow of colors and shapes that would have been beautiful under different circumstances. Today, however, the chamber felt more like a courtroom than a place of diplomacy. "The charges are clear," announced Counselor Vextar, his scaled head rising high above his serpentine body. The Nagan species had always been one of humanity's harshest critics. Humanity has repeatedly violated the peaceful expansion accords. Their military buildup in the Centauri system directly threatens galactic stability. Sarah kept her expression neutral, though her heart raced. She had seen this coming for months. The other species feared humanity's rapid technological advancement and expansion rate. What they called aggression, humans called progress. Counselor Vextar speaks truth, chimed in the crystalline voice of Ambassador Zethnara from the collective. Human ships patrol 17 systems now. Their growth exceeds all projections. This cannot continue. The murmur of agreement that rippled through the chamber made Sarah's stomach clench. She had hoped some species would support humanity, but the faces around her showed only suspicion and fear. "May I remind the Council that every human settlement has been established on previously uninhabited worlds," Sarah said, her voice carrying clearly through the translation matrix. "We have taken nothing that belonged to others." "You take too much, too quickly," rumbled the deep voice of Togmarin, representative of the massive Bruton Empire. "Your species breeds like insects. Your ships multiply like spores. Where will it end?" Sarah wanted to point out that the Brutons had conquered half their home galaxy through brute force, but diplomacy required restraint. Humanity simply seeks its place among the stars, just as every species here has done. "Your place was Earth," hissed Vextar. "You were given technology to join the galactic community. Instead, you use it to spread like a plague." The accusation stung because it held a grain of truth. Humanity had expanded faster than any species in recorded galactic history. What had taken other races millennia, humans accomplished in decades. Their adaptability and determination had impressed many species initially, but that impression had soured into suspicion. "The Council has reached a decision," announced Prime Counselor Ythera, her forearms gesturing in the formal pattern of judgment. The Etherian leader's words carried the weight of absolute authority. "Humanity will withdraw from all systems beyond Sol immediately." "That's impossible," Sarah protested. "There are over 60 million humans living in those systems. They've built lives, families, entire communities. They will return to Earth or face the consequences," Vextar declared with obvious satisfaction. "The Council is generous. We grant 6 months for complete withdrawal." "And if we refuse?" Sarah asked, though she already knew the answer. "Then, humanity will face the combined forces of the Galactic Defense Fleet," Ythera replied solemnly. "Your species lacks the strength to resist 47 united civilizations." Sarah looked around the chamber one last time, searching for any sign of support. The Kalani delegate avoided her eyes. The Threnodai representative had already begun the ritual of severing diplomatic ties. Even the usually neutral Axiom Collective showed only cold indifference. "I need to communicate with Earth before I can respond," Sarah said finally. "You have 72 hours, Ythera declared. "After that, the Council expects your answer." As the session ended, Sarah walked through corridors that had once felt welcoming. Now they seemed to close in around her like a trap. She passed windows showing the gleaming spires of Council Station, where representatives from across the galaxy worked together for peace and prosperity. Soon, humanity would no longer be welcome here. Her communicator buzzed with an encrypted message from Earth. President Martinez had been monitoring the session through quantum entanglement relays. The message was brief, but clear. "Come home immediately. Emergency cabinet meeting in progress." The journey back to Earth took 18 hours through hyperspace. Sarah spent most of it staring out at the swirling tunnel of distorted light, thinking about what humanity would do next. They couldn't fight the entire galaxy. They couldn't return to just one world after tasting the freedom of the stars. There had to be another option. Earth looked more crowded than ever when her shuttle descended toward New Geneva. The The sprawling cities covered most continents now, housing nearly 12 billion people. Another 2 billion lived in orbital habitats and lunar colonies. How could they all fit back in the Sol system? President Martinez met her at the spaceport personally, his usually cheerful face grave with concern. How bad is it, Sarah? Complete exile, she replied as they climbed into the armored transport. 6 months to withdraw from all human settlements beyond Sol or face total war. Son of a... Martinez caught himself before completing the curse. What about our allies? The colony at least? No one spoke for us. I think some wanted to, but they're all afraid. The big powers have been building this coalition for months, maybe years. The transport raced through the city toward the government district. Outside the windows, holographic news feeds were already broadcasting emergency bulletins. Crowds gathered in the streets, their faces showing confusion and anger as the news spread. The emergency session included military leaders, scientists, economists, and representatives from every human colony. General Harrison spoke first, his weathered face grim. Our fleet stands at 300 ships of the line, plus support vessels. It's impressive for a species that's been spacefaring for only 80 years, but it's nothing compared to what we're facing. The economic implications are staggering, added Dr. Patel from Colonial Affairs. We need to abandon infrastructure worth trillions of credits. The mining operations in Kepler, 442, the research stations in Vega, the agricultural worlds in Gliese, 667c. All of it would be lost. What about the people? Asked Senator Kim from Luna Colony. My constituents didn't agree to this. They left Earth to build something new. Now you're telling them to come crawling back. The room erupted in arguments. Colonial representatives demanded resistance. Military leaders warned about impossible odds. Economic advisors calculated the cost of compliance. Through it all, President Martinez sat silently, his fingers steepled in thought. What about the outer rim? He asked suddenly, cutting through the noise. The room fell quiet. Dr. Elena Vasquez from the Astronomical Survey Division cleared her throat. The outer rim territories are technically unclaimed. Beyond the galactic spiral arm, there are thousands of star systems that no counselor species has ever explored. The radiation fields and gravitational anomalies make travel difficult for most species. But not impossible for humans. Martinez pressed. Our ships are more robust than most alien designs. Humans also handle cosmic radiation better than the majority of council species. We could potentially establish settlements in regions they consider uninhabitable. Admiral Shunned, Sarah's older brother, leaned forward. It would mean giving up everything we've built in the inner systems. Starting over from nothing in a hostile environment. We've started over before, Martinez replied. Our ancestors left Earth in generation ships when they thought it was dying. They built colonies on worlds no sane person would choose. Maybe it's time to remember what humans do best. You're talking about permanent exile, Senator Kim protested. Cutting ourselves off from galactic civilization forever. Are we really part of galactic civilization if they can kick us out whenever they feel threatened? Martinez countered. Maybe it's time humanity stopped trying to fit in with species that will never accept us. Dr. Vasquez pulled up a holographic star chart showing the galaxy's outer edge. There are approximately 15,000 star systems in the accessible regions of the outer rim. Preliminary surveys suggest at least 3,000 have potentially habitable worlds. The resources would be essentially unlimited. And the dangers? Asked General Harrison. Space storms, gravitational shears, cosmic radiation bursts, possible hostile native life forms, complete isolation from all known civilization. Vasquez listed matter-of-factly. Also, the possibility of species or phenomena we've never encountered. Sounds like Tuesday on a human colony world, joked Captain Torres from the Frontier Corps, earning nervous laughter from around the room. Martinez stood and walked to the star chart, studying the swirling mass of unexplored systems. How long would it take to relocate our entire off-world population to the outer rim? With our current transport capacity? 8 to 10 years, calculated Admiral Chun. We'd need to build a massive fleet of colony ships and establish supply lines across hostile space. Then, we start immediately, Martinez declared. Begin evacuation of the outer colonies first. Tell the families they're pioneers again, not refugees. We'll establish a network of way stations leading to the rim, create supply depots, build the infrastructure needed for permanent settlement. Mr. President, Dr. Patel interjected. This plan assumes the Council will allow us to pass through their space during the relocation. We'll take the long way around, Martinez replied. Chart a course through the galactic void if necessary. Humans have crossed emptier spaces before. Sarah had remained quiet during the discussion, but now she spoke up. The Council expects an answer in 60 hours. What do I tell them? Martinez turned back to the assembled leaders. All in favor of accepting exile and relocating to the outer rim. The vote was closer than Sarah expected, but clear enough. Humanity would leave the galactic community and seek its destiny among the unexplored stars of the outer rim. Tell them humanity accepts their judgment, Martinez instructed. We'll withdraw from all disputed territories within their time frame. But also tell them something else. What's that, sir? Tell them they'll regret this decision. Not because we'll come back for revenge, but because they're about to learn what humans can accomplish when they stop trying to please others and start being themselves. Sarah returned to Council Station one last time to deliver humanity's response. The chamber seemed different now, smaller somehow. The representatives who had seemed so powerful before now looked like what they truly were, a collection of old, tired civilizations afraid of change. Humanity accepts the Council's judgment, she announced formally. We will withdraw from all settlements beyond the Sol system within the specified time frame. The relief in the chamber was palpable. Councillor Vextar actually seemed disappointed that there wouldn't be a war to justify the military buildup his species had been pursuing. The Council is pleased by humanity's wisdom, Prime Councillor Ythera declared. Perhaps in future centuries, when your species has learned the value of restraint, we might reconsider your membership. Sarah smiled for the first time in days. Counselor, I don't think that will be necessary. Humanity has learned something valuable from this experience. We don't need your permission to reach for the stars. As she left Council Station for the final time, Sarah felt something she hadn't expected: relief. Humanity had been trying to fit into someone else's definition of civilization for 80 years. Now they were free to create their own. The message she sent to Earth was simple: Operation Exodus approved. Begin Phase 1 immediately. Time to show the galaxy what humans can really do. Behind her, the great station grew smaller in the viewport until it was just another point of light among the stars. Ahead lay the unknown vastness of the outer rim, where humanity would write its own destiny without asking anyone's permission. The real adventure was just beginning. Captain Marcus Webb watched the last transport lift off from New Kepler Colony, carrying 3,000 colonists away from the world they had called home for 15 years. The ship's engines left glowing trails in the purple twilight sky as it climbed toward the stars, bound for the evacuation fleet gathering at the system's edge. In 6 weeks, this bustling agricultural world would be empty of human presence. The Council had made it clear that any humans remaining in disputed territories after the deadline would be considered hostile forces. Nobody wanted to test their resolve. Hard to watch, isn't it? Dr. Lisa Chun joined Marcus on the observation deck of the colony's administrative center. As the settlement's director of operations, she had overseen the growth of New Kepler from a handful of prefab shelters to a thriving community of 50,000 people. 15 years of work, Marcus replied, his voice bitter. Fields that feed half the inner colonies, processing plants that produce medicine for a dozen worlds, research facilities that have advanced human science by decades. All abandoned because some scaled politicians got nervous about our success. Lisa nodded toward the horizon where the lights of abandoned farm complexes twinkled like fallen stars. The colony are already requesting rights to the agricultural zones. Apparently, they've been eyeing our quantum-enhanced crop yields for years. Of course they have. Marcus turned away from the window. As military coordinator for the evacuation, he had seen this pattern repeated across 17 human worlds. The moment humanity announced its withdrawal, Council species began filing claims for human-built infrastructure. They wanted the humans gone, but were perfectly happy to benefit from human innovation and hard work. His communicator buzzed with an incoming priority message from Admiral Chun aboard the fleet flagship. The holographic projection showed the Admiral in his command center, star charts displaying behind him. Marcus, we've got a problem. The Nagan fleet is demanding inspection rights for all human vessels passing through the Vega checkpoint. Inspection for what? Marcus asked, though he could guess. They claim we might be carrying weapons or technology that violates the withdrawal agreement. It's obviously harassment, but they have the legal authority to delay us indefinitely. Lisa leaned into the communicator's pickup range. Admiral, what about the northern route through the void? 3 additional weeks of travel time through empty space. We'd need to carry extra supplies, and some of the older colony ships might not make it. The Admiral paused. But it might be our only option if we want to avoid giving the Council an excuse to claim we're violating the agreement. There is another option, Marcus said slowly. What if we don't take all of our technology with us? Both Lisa and the Admiral stared at him in confusion. Explain, Admiral Chun ordered. Marcus walked to the room's main display and called up a schematic of New Kepler's industrial complex. What if we leave behind exactly what the Council expects to find? Abandoned colonies with basic infrastructure. But what if the really important stuff, the breakthrough technologies and advanced systems, disappear before the Council takes over? You're talking about sabotage, Lisa said, her voice concerned. The withdrawal agreement specifically prohibits destruction of infrastructure. Not destruction, redistribution. Marcus highlighted sections of the schematic in red. Look at this. The quantum crop enhancement systems aren't really part of the infrastructure. They're modular add-ons that can be removed and relocated. Same with the medical fabrication units, the advanced communication arrays, and the zero-point energy collectors. Admiral Chen's eyes lit up with understanding. Strip out the advanced technology and transport it separately. Leave the basic buildings and equipment that any species could have built. The Council gets 17 fully functional colonies, just not as advanced as they think they are, Marcus continued. And humanity gets to keep the innovations that took us decades to develop. It would require round-the-clock work to complete the removals before evacuation, Lisa calculated. We'd need teams on every world simultaneously. Then, we better get started, Admiral Chen decided. I'll send the order to all colony coordinators. Strip anything that represents a significant technological advance. Transport it to the rendezvous point at the edge of the rim. The next 4 weeks became a blur of frantic activity. On 17 worlds, human colonists worked day and night to carefully remove advanced systems from their infrastructure. It was delicate work, removing the technology without damaging the basic structures that would remain. Marcus found himself traveling between worlds, coordinating the massive operation. On Vega Prime, engineers carefully extracted quantum computer cores from research facilities. On New Geneva Colony, medical teams disassembled advanced surgical systems and biofabrication units. On Terra Nova, miners removed gravitational manipulation systems from deep extraction sites. It's like performing surgery on a living city, reported engineer Sarah Kim from Centauri Beta. We're taking out the nervous system, but leaving the skeleton intact. The operation wasn't just about preserving technology. Human colonists also worked to secure genetic samples from modified crops, backup copies of research data, and portable versions of manufacturing systems. If humanity was going to start over in the Outer Rim, they would need every advantage they could carry. Meanwhile, the evacuation continued. Transport ships arrived daily to ferry colonists to the growing refugee fleet. Children said goodbye to the only homes they had ever known. Adults packed decades of memories into cargo containers. Families were split up as different ships departed on different schedules. Marcus watched it all with a mixture of sadness and growing excitement. The sadness was obvious. Humanity was losing its first steps into the wider galaxy. But the excitement came from something else entirely. For the first time since joining the Galactic Council, humanity was acting like itself again. You know what I realized? Dr. Thompson, the xenobiologist from New Geneva Colony, spoke as he helped load research samples onto a transport. We spent 80 years trying to prove we belonged in their galaxy. We changed our expansion rates, modified our military policies, even altered our scientific research to make other species more comfortable. And where did it get us? Asked Dr. Patel, securing a container of genetic samples. Exactly. But now we don't have to ask permission anymore. We can expand as fast as we want, build whatever we need, explore whatever interests us. The council just gave us complete freedom by kicking us out. Marcus had heard variations of this conversation on every world he visited. Despite the disruption and uncertainty, many colonists were beginning to see the exile as an opportunity rather than a punishment. Humanity would no longer be constrained by the cautious, consensus-building approach of the Galactic Council. The technological salvage operation reached its conclusion with barely hours to spare before the Council deadline. The last transport ships lifted off from human worlds carrying not just people and personal belongings, but the extracted cores of humanity's greatest innovations. Admiral Shunned reported the final tally to the evacuation fleet. 17 worlds successfully evacuated. 0 casualties. Advanced technology secured and en route to RIM staging areas. Total refugees, 62 million people. And our destination? Asked Captain Rodriguez from the colony ship New Horizon. Admiral Chun activated a holographic display showing a sector map of the outer rim. Long-range surveys have identified a cluster of 47 star systems approximately 800 light-years beyond the galactic spiral arm. Initial scans show at least 12 potentially habitable worlds and abundant resources. The star cluster glowed on the display like a beacon of hope. It was further from Earth than humanity had ever traveled, in a region where radiation storms and gravitational anomalies would challenge even human engineering. But it was also completely unclaimed by any council species. "What do we call our new home?" asked Dr. Chun over the fleet communication channel. President Martinez, aboard the command ship, answered immediately, "Haven Cluster." Because that's exactly what it's going to be, a haven for human ambition and human values, where we don't have to apologize for being ourselves. The journey to Haven Cluster would take 3 months through the galactic void. The refugee fleet consisted of over 200 vessels, from massive colony ships carrying thousands of people to smaller transports loaded with equipment and supplies. It was the largest human migration in history. During the voyage, something remarkable happened. Instead of wallowing in defeat, the evacuees began planning for the future. Scientists collaborated on new research projects that would have been impossible under council oversight. Engineers designed colony systems optimized for human needs rather than alien sensibilities. Social planners developed governance structures that reflected human values without compromise. "We're not refugees anymore," announced Professor Williams during one of the fleet-wide broadcasts. "We're pioneers again. We're doing what humans do best, taking an impossible situation and turning it into an opportunity." Children attended classes in ship schools where they learned about their new home. Unlike the careful, diplomatic education they might have received in council space, these lessons focused on human achievement, human values, and human potential. For the first time in generations, human children were being taught to be proud of their species. Marcus spent much of the journey working with the advanced scouts who were already in the Haven Cluster. Their reports painted a picture of a challenging but promising region. The star systems were rich in heavy elements essential for advanced technology. Several worlds showed signs of past geological activity that had created abundant mineral resources. Most importantly, none of the worlds showed signs of current intelligent life. "It's like the cluster was waiting for us," reported Commander Torres from the scout ship Pathfinder. "Everything we need to build a new civilization is here. We just have to be strong enough to claim it." The first view of Haven Cluster appeared on the fleet's screens as they dropped out of hyperspace. 47 stars scattered across a region of space larger than human-occupied territory had ever been. Some burned bright and blue, others glowed red and ancient. Several binary pairs danced around each other in eternal cosmic ballet. "It's beautiful," whispered Dr. Chun over the communication channel. "It's ours," Admiral Chun replied firmly. "Every star, every world, every resource in this cluster belongs to humanity. Not because some council granted it to us, but because we had the courage to claim it." The fleet moved toward the largest star system, designated Haven Prime. Initial surveys had identified 3 potentially habitable worlds and a wealth of asteroid resources for mining and construction. It would become the foundation of humanity's new civilization. As the ships approached their new home, Marcus reflected on the journey that had brought them here. The Galactic Council had intended exile as punishment, a way to limit human expansion and reduce human influence. Instead, they had given humanity something far more valuable: complete freedom to develop according to their own nature. "Admiral," reported the navigation officer, "we're receiving a transmission from the advance team on Haven Prime. The first temporary settlements are operational and ready to receive colonists. Signal the fleet," Admiral Chun ordered. "All ships prepare for orbital insertion. Let's go home." As the great ships descended toward their new world, Marcus couldn't help but smile. The Council had tried to exile humanity to the edge of nowhere. Instead, they had given humanity the perfect place to become everything they were meant to be. The real test would come next: building a civilization that could thrive in the harsh environment of the Outer Rim while staying true to human values. But if there was one thing humans excelled at, it was turning challenges into opportunities. Haven Cluster was about to learn what humans could accomplish when nobody was telling them to slow down. 5 years had passed since the Great Exodus, and Dr. Elena Vasquez stood on the observation deck of Haven Station, watching construction crews finish the installation of the cluster's first quantum communications array. The massive structure stretched for kilometers through space, its crystalline segments catching and reflecting the light from Haven Prime's twin suns. "Final calibration complete," reported Chief Engineer Morrison through the communication system. "We're ready for the first test transmission to the outer colonies." Elena smiled as she activated her recording device. As the Haven Cluster's Chief of Communications, she had the honor of sending humanity's first instant message across their new territory. "All stations, this is Haven Central. Quantum Communication Network is now active. Welcome to the neighborhood." The responses came back immediately from stations scattered across 47 star systems. "New Olympia Colony, receiving you clearly. Water reclamation systems operational at 112% efficiency. Mining station Prometheus reporting. Tritanium extraction exceeding all projections. We've struck the largest deposit in human history. Research outpost Galileo here. Just successfully tested the new gravity manipulation drives. We can now move asteroids with the precision of a surgeon. Agricultural station Demeter online. Our modified crops are producing yields that would feed the entire former council space. The radiation here actually enhances certain growth processes." Elena listened to report after report, each one better than the last. What the council had intended as exile had become the foundation of humanity's golden age. Free from the restrictions and oversight of alien civilizations, human innovation had exploded in directions that would have been impossible in council space. "Elena, you need to see this," called out Dr. James Park from the research center. He was reviewing data from the deep space monitoring stations that humanity had established throughout the cluster. "We're picking up something unusual from the galactic core direction." Elena made her way to the research section where holographic displays showed real-time data from across human space. "What kind of unusual?" "Hyperspace disturbances. Multiple large vessels moving through council space at speeds that exceed anything in their fleets. The pattern suggests a coordinated military operation, but the energy signatures are unknown." Elena frowned as she studied the data. "How large are we talking about?" "Massive. Each contact shows energy output equivalent to an entire council battle fleet. And there are dozens of them, moving in formation toward the galactic center." "Invasion force? That's what worries me. These aren't council ships, and they're not using any technology we recognize from the galactic database. Someone new has entered the galaxy, and they're not here for diplomacy." Elena activated the priority communication channel to Earth. Even at quantum transmission speeds, coordinating a response across the massive distances of human space required careful planning. "Admiral Chun, we have a potential situation developing in council space." The Admiral's holographic image appeared within seconds. Behind him, Elena could see the bustling activity of Earth's new orbital defense network, a system more advanced than anything humanity had possessed while under council oversight. "What's the situation, Elena?" "Unknown hostiles, possibly extraterrestrial, moving through council space with overwhelming force. Initial estimates suggest technological superiority to any known galactic civilization." Admiral Chin's expression grew serious. Any direct threat to human space? None detected. The unknown seemed focused on Council territory. But, Admiral, the implications. I understand. If these unknowns defeat the Council, we could be dealing with a galactic hegemon with hostile intentions. What's the status of our defensive preparations? Elena pulled up the comprehensive display of human military development over the past 5 years. The numbers would have shocked the Council species who had worried about human expansion rates. Free from restrictions, humanity had built a space navy that dwarfed their previous capabilities. The home defense fleet now consists of 800 ships of the line, including 50 of the new Titan-class dreadnoughts. The Outer Rim Patrol has another 400 vessels, and each colony system maintains its own defense force. Total active vessels exceed 1,500 ships. Crew status. Full recruitment has been maintained. Our population growth in the Outer Rim has provided plenty of volunteers for military service. Many colonists view fleet service as essential frontier duty. Admiral Chen nodded approvingly. The military expansion had been possible because human colonies in the Rim required protection from natural hazards as well as potential threats. Solar storms, gravitational anomalies, and cosmic radiation bursts made space travel in the region inherently dangerous. The skills needed for Rim navigation translated directly to military competence. What about our technological edge? Elena activated another display showing humanity's research achievements. 5 years of unrestricted development have yielded remarkable results. Our hyperspace drives are now 30% faster than standard Council technology. The new energy shields can withstand direct hits from stellar-class weapons. Most importantly, our quantum targeting systems provide accuracy rates that exceed galactic standards by orders of magnitude. And the secret projects? Elena lowered her voice even though they were communicating through encrypted quantum channels. Project Prometheus is ready for deployment. We can now construct vessels twice the size of anything previously thought possible. Project Atlas has achieved successful gravity manipulation on a planetary scale. Project Phoenix has developed self-repairing ship systems that can rebuild damage in real time. These advances had been possible because humanity no longer needed to worry about alarming alien species with rapid military development. In the Outer Rim, human safety depended entirely on human strength. The constant environmental challenges had also driven innovation at a pace that would have been impossible in the comfortable safety of Council space. Maintain monitoring of the situation in Council space, Admiral Chun ordered. But do not reveal our observation capabilities. If the Council is facing extinction, they might try to drag humanity into their conflict. Understood, sir. But what if they request assistance? Admiral Chin's expression hardened. The Council made their position clear 5 years ago. Humanity was too dangerous to remain in civilized space. Let them face the consequences of that decision alone. The transmission ended, but Elena remained at her station, monitoring the developing situation. Over the following days, the reports became increasingly alarming. The unknown fleet had swept through 3 Council systems without slowing down. No communication had been attempted, and no survivors remained to describe the attackers. Dr. Park continued tracking the invasion force's progress. They're using some form of reality manipulation technology. Our sensors show localized breakdowns in the laws of physics around their ships. They're not just defeating Council fleets, they're making them cease to exist. Any pattern to their targets? Elena asked. They seem to be focusing on heavily populated systems and major military installations. It's systematic genocide, Elena. They're not conquering the Council. They're exterminating it. News of the crisis eventually reached the general population through the quantum communication network. The reaction throughout human space was complex. Many colonists felt satisfaction that the species who had exiled humanity were finally facing consequences for their actions. Others worried about the implications of such a powerful hostile force existing in the galaxy. Captain Sarah Martinez, commander of the patrol ship Defiant, expressed the common sentiment during a fleet-wide conference. The Council threw us out because they thought we were dangerous. Now they're being wiped out by something actually dangerous. Maybe they should have kept us around as allies instead of making us into potential enemies. The truth in her statement resonated throughout human space. The Council had feared human military capabilities, but those same capabilities might have been their salvation against the current threat. Instead, humanity was isolated in the Outer Rim while their former neighbors faced extinction. President Rodriguez, who had succeeded Martinez 3 years earlier, addressed the situation in a broadcast to all human colonies. The crisis in Council space is a tragedy, but it is not our tragedy. We offered partnership and received exile. We offered cooperation and received suspicion. We will not sacrifice human lives to save civilizations that rejected us when we needed acceptance. The policy was overwhelmingly popular among colonists who had lost homes and businesses during the exile. But not everyone agreed. Dr. Thompson from the New Geneva Research Station argued for a different approach. Regardless of past grievances, allowing an unknown hostile force to control the galaxy poses a long-term threat to human survival. We should at least offer intelligence support to Council forces. The debate raged across human space for weeks while the unknown invaders continued their systematic destruction. By the 6th week, over half of Council space had fallen to the mysterious fleet. Refugee ships began fleeing toward the outer galactic rim, carrying survivors from destroyed civilizations. Elena, we're receiving a priority transmission from Council space, Dr. Park announced urgently. It's on the old diplomatic frequencies. They know we're listening. Elena activated the communication array, her hands trembling slightly. After 5 years of silence, contact from the Council could only mean desperation. The image that appeared was shocking. Prime Counselor Ythera looked haggard and defeated, her usually pristine appearance disheveled. Behind her, explosions lit up what appeared to be a damaged space station. To any human forces monitoring this transmission, she began, her voice breaking with emotion. The Galactic Council formally requests immediate assistance against an invasion force of unknown origin and capabilities. We acknowledge that our previous treatment of humanity may have been hasty. Elena exchanged glances with Dr. Park. The proud Etherian leader was practically begging for help from the species they had exiled. Our combined fleets have been unable to slow their advance, Ythera continued. Their technology exceeds our understanding of physics. If they reach the core systems, galactic civilization will cease to exist. We are prepared to offer full restoration of human membership and territorial concessions if you will aid us. The transmission cut off abruptly, presumably as the station came under attack. Elena immediately forwarded the message to Earth and every colony in human space. The response would require consultation with elected representatives from across the cluster. But she suspected she already knew what the answer would be. Humanity had spent 5 years building a new civilization based on their own values and capabilities. They had created something stronger and more dynamic than anything that existed in Council space. The question was whether they would risk that achievement to save the civilizations that had rejected them. Within hours, responses poured in from across human space. The pattern was clear. Humanity would face this crisis as they faced everything else, on their own terms, according to their own judgment, with no apologies to anyone. The exiled species had become something the Galactic Council had never imagined, a civilization that no longer needed their approval or their permission to act. The unknown invaders were about to discover what humanity could accomplish when they stopped trying to fit in and started being themselves. But first, humanity had to decide whether the galaxy was worth saving. Admiral Sarah Shunned stood before the largest gathering of human leaders in 5 years. Representatives from every colony, military commanders from across the fleet, scientists, engineers, and civilian administrators had assembled on Haven Station to decide humanity's response to the galactic crisis. The observation deck had been converted into an enormous amphitheater, with holographic displays showing real-time updates from Council space. The news was universally bad. In the 3 days since Prime Counselor Ythera's desperate plea, 16 more Council systems had fallen to the unknown invaders. Refugee streams poured toward the galactic rim, carrying survivors whose ships barely held together long enough to escape the devastation. The pattern is clear, reported Dr. Elena Vasquez, displaying tactical analyses on the central screen. The invaders target population centers first, then military installations, then infrastructure. They're not interested in conquest or occupation. This is systematic extermination. General Harrison from the Haven Defense Corps reviewed the latest intelligence. Council resistance has been completely ineffective. Their combined fleets can't even slow the enemy advance. Whatever technology these invaders possess, it's beyond anything in the galactic database. What about their request for assistance? Asked Governor Kim from New Geneva Colony. The Council is offering full membership restoration and territorial concessions. President Rodriguez stood to address the Assembly. The question before us isn't what the Council is offering. The question is what we owe to civilizations that exiled us when we needed their support. The response from the colonial representatives was immediate and passionate. Commander Torres from the Frontier Corps spoke first. My people lost everything when we were forced to evacuate. Homes, businesses, research projects that took decades to develop. Now they want us to risk human lives to save them. The colony were already filing claims on our agricultural technology before we finished evacuating, added Dr. Patel from the farming collectives. They couldn't wait to profit from our forced departure. Captain Martinez from the patrol fleet offered a different perspective. Personal grievances aside, if these invaders finish off the Council, they'll have control of the entire galactic core. How long before they turn their attention to the outer rim? The debate continued for hours, with compelling arguments on both sides. Some representatives argued for humanitarian intervention, others for strategic isolation. A few suggested offering limited assistance while protecting human interests. Admiral Chun had remained silent during the discussions, but now she requested permission to address the Assembly. The room fell quiet as she activated a secure communication link to Earth. Before we make this decision, there's classified information you need to hear. Mr. President. President Martinez appeared as a holographic projection, his expression grave. 3 hours ago, our deep space monitoring stations detected something that changes the entire situation. The unknown invaders aren't just attacking Council space. They're testing our borders. The Assembly erupted in concerned murmurs as Martinez continued. 2 unidentified vessels probed our outer defense grid near the Prometheus system. They didn't attack, but they scanned our installations extensively before withdrawing. The message is clear, we're next on their list. Admiral Chin activated tactical displays showing the probe incidents. The unknown vessels demonstrated technology consistent with the invasion fleet. Reality manipulation, physics-defying maneuvers, energy signatures that exceed our understanding. They know we're here, and they're evaluating our defenses. The political calculus changed instantly. This was no longer about helping the Council. It was about human survival. How long do we have? Asked Governor Williams from the outer colonies. Based on their rate of advance through Council space, approximately 6 weeks until they finish eliminating organized resistance, Admiral Chin replied. After that, they'll likely turn their full attention to our territory. Dr. Vasquez pulled up strategic projections. Our defensive advantages are significant, but not insurmountable. The outer rim's natural hazards provide some protection, but a force capable of manipulating physical laws might not be deterred by radiation storms and gravitational anomalies. What about our fleet strength? Asked General Harrison. Individually, our ships are superior to Council vessels in most categories, Admiral Chen replied. Our crews have better training, our technology is more advanced, and our tactical doctrines are more flexible. But the unknowns have destroyed forces 10 times larger than ours without taking apparent damage. Commander Torres leaned forward. Are we talking about fighting alongside the Council, or fighting instead of the Council? That depends on what's left of them by the time we act, Admiral Chan answered grimly. Intelligence suggests their remaining forces have fewer than 400 operational ships scattered across a dozen systems. They're finished as an effective fighting force. President Martinez's hologram addressed the Assembly directly. The question isn't whether we help the Council. The question is whether we use their remaining resources to strengthen our own defense, or allow the invaders to eliminate them and face the threat alone. The strategic reality was harsh, but clear. If humanity was going to face this invasion force, they needed every advantage they could get. That meant preserving what remained of Council military capability for the final battle. I'm authorizing Operation Sanctuary, President Martinez announced. We'll establish defensive positions in the buffer zone between Council space and the outer rim. Any Council forces that reach our lines will be integrated into our defensive strategy. But, make this clear, this is a human operation protecting human interests. We're not saving the Council. We're using them. The Assembly voted overwhelmingly to support the operation. Within hours, the largest human fleet in history began moving toward the border of Council space. Admiral Chun commanded the expedition from the flagship Indomitable, a Titan-class dreadnought that embodied 5 years of unrestricted human military development. The fleet consisted of 600 ships divided into 3 task forces. The primary battle group centered on 20 Titan-class dreadnoughts, vessels larger than anything the Council had ever constructed. The support group included advanced cruisers equipped with experimental gravity manipulation weapons. The escort group protected supply lines and provided rapid response capability. As they traveled toward the battle zone, Admiral Chun reviewed the latest intelligence from their observation posts. The picture was grim, but not hopeless. The unknowns rely heavily on their reality manipulation technology, reported Dr. Stevens from the Science Division. But our analysis suggests it requires enormous energy expenditure. They might be vulnerable during recharge periods. What about their ship design? Asked Captain Morrison from the Tactical Division. Organic curves, no visible weapons systems, propulsion that defies conventional physics. But they do take damage. We've observed temporary disruptions in their energy fields after prolonged engagements. They're advanced, not invincible. Weaknesses. They appear to operate as a hive mind or coordinated collective. Disrupting their command structure might affect their tactical coordination. Also, they seem to have difficulty adapting to completely new technologies. Council weapons barely scratch them. But that might be because Council technology is centuries old. Admiral Chun smiled grimly. Then, let's give them something they've never seen before. The human fleet arrived at the border of Council space to find chaos. Refugee convoys stretched across 3 star systems, carrying survivors from destroyed worlds. Most were civilian transports barely capable of interstellar flight. A few military vessels provided escort, their hulls scarred from desperate battles. This is Admiral Chun of the Human Defense Fleet, she broadcast on all frequencies. All Council vessels proceed immediately to Sanctuary Station coordinates. Prepare to integrate with human command structure. This is not a negotiation. The response was immediate relief. Captain Vortash of the Bruton Remnant Fleet replied first. Admiral Chun, we have 67 military vessels and 300,000 refugees. We accept human command authority unconditionally. Similar responses came from the surviving ships of a dozen species. In their desperation, the proud Council races were willing to place themselves under human authority, something they would never have considered 5 years earlier. Admiral Chun established her command center at Sanctuary Station, a massive human military base constructed specifically for this operation. The station's advanced sensors provided real-time intelligence on enemy movements while its heavy weapons could support the defensive fleet. Status report. She requested from her operations staff. 237 Council vessels have reached our lines, reported Commander Ellis. Most are damaged, but operational. Total refugee population approaches 1 million beings. Integration status? Proceeding better than expected. The survivors are grateful for any protection. They're following human tactical doctrines without question. Enemy position? The invasion fleet has finished eliminating organized resistance in the core systems. Long-range sensors detect their main force beginning movement toward the rim. Estimated arrival, 8 days. Admiral Chun activated the fleet-wide communication system. All vessels, this is Admiral Chun. In 8 days, we face an enemy that has destroyed the greatest military alliance in galactic history. They have technology we don't understand and power we can barely measure. But they made one critical mistake. They left humanity for last. The response from the combined fleet was overwhelming. Human crews cheered while Council survivors found hope for the first time since the invasion began. For 5 years, we've built our strength in exile. We've developed weapons they've never seen, tactics they can't predict, and determination they can't comprehend. We're not fighting to save the Council. We're fighting to prove that some things in this galaxy don't surrender. Admiral Chun cut the transmission and turned to her staff. Begin Phase 1. Launch the probe attacks. The next week would determine whether humanity's 5 years of exile had prepared them for the greatest challenge in galactic history. The unknown invaders were about to learn that exiling humanity hadn't eliminated the threat, it had concentrated it. Across the defensive line, human and council vessels prepared for a battle that would determine the future of galactic civilization. But, for the first time since the invasion began, the defenders had something the unknowns hadn't faced before: hope backed by human determination and human innovation. The real test was about to begin. The battle for the Sanctuary Line began at 0347 hours Galactic Standard Time, when Admiral Chen's probe attacks encountered the leading edge of the invasion fleet. The unknown vessels appeared on sensors like tears in reality itself, their organic curves distorting space around them as they moved through dimensions that shouldn't exist. "Contact," reported Sensor Officer Kim from the flagship Indomitable. 64 unknown vessels advancing on the probe line. Energy signatures confirm these are the same type that destroyed the Council fleets. Admiral Chen watched the tactical display as her advanced scouts engaged the enemy. The probe attacks had been designed to test the invaders' capabilities while revealing nothing about humanity's true strength. Older Council vessels, crewed by volunteers, would make first contact while human ships observed from concealment. "Probe Fleet Alpha engaging the enemy," reported Captain Vortash from his Bruton heavy cruiser. "They're not using projectile weapons or energy beams. Something else entirely." On the display, Admiral Chen watched the Council ships begin to disintegrate. Not destroyed by explosions or fire, they simply ceased to exist as the unknown weapons touched them. Molecular bonds broke down. Physical laws stopped working. Reality itself was being edited to remove the human defenders. "Probe Fleet Alpha eliminated," Captain Vortash reported, his voice steady despite watching his people die. "No survivors." Enemy advance continuing towards secondary line. Admiral Chen activated the fleet-wide tactical network. "All human vessels, you have seen the enemy's primary weapon. Begin countermeasure deployment." Across the defensive line, human ships activated systems that no Council species had ever developed. Quantum field generators created bubbles of reinforced reality around each vessel. Probability manipulators made it statistically unlikely that enemy weapons would achieve target lock. Causality anchors prevented the unknowns from editing human ships out of existence. "These are the advantages of 5 years without oversight," Admiral Chen announced to her bridge crew. "While the Council was worrying about our expansion rate, we were solving the real problems of frontier survival." The second probe attack lasted longer. Council vessels equipped with human defensive technology managed to survive the initial assault long enough to gather crucial intelligence. The unknowns were powerful, but they had never faced organized resistance using cutting-edge defensive measures. Enemy weapons appear to function by manipulating quantum probability fields, reported Dr. Stevens from the Science Division. "They make it more likely that their targets will suffer catastrophic system failures. Our countermeasures are disrupting their probability calculations." How long can the countermeasures hold? Unknown. This is the first practical test against reality manipulation weapons. But the enemy seems confused by our resistance. They're adapting more slowly than expected. Admiral Chen smiled grimly. The unknowns had grown accustomed to easy victories against civilizations using millennium-old technology. Humanity's rapid innovation was presenting them with weapons and defenses they had never encountered. Begin Phase 2. Launch the harassment squadrons. Human attack groups swept in from multiple directions, using hit-and-run tactics perfected during 5 years of Outer Rim patrol operations. The fast cruisers and destroyers didn't try to match the unknown's firepower. Instead, they used superior speed and maneuverability to disrupt enemy formations. Captain Martinez led the first attack run in her destroyer Swift Justice. Enemy vessels are slower than expected. Their reality manipulation requires significant power, which appears to reduce their tactical mobility. Her squadron danced around the massive unknown ships, using quantum torpedoes and gravity manipulation cannons to probe for weaknesses. The weapons were uniquely human innovations, developed specifically for combat in the dangerous environments of the Outer Rim. "Target their energy field generators," Admiral Chen ordered. "If we can disrupt their reality manipulation, they become vulnerable to conventional weapons. The harassment attacks continued for 6 hours while the main invasion fleet advanced towards Sanctuary Station. But something was changing. The Unknown's advance had slowed dramatically as they tried to adapt to human tactics and technology. Admiral, reported Commander Ellis from the tactical station, we're receiving communication attempts from the enemy. They want to talk? Apparently. The signal is complex. Mathematical patterns, quantum frequencies, probability matrices. Dr. Stevens thinks it might be some form of collective consciousness trying to establish communication protocols. Admiral Chun considered the implications. The Unknowns had never attempted communication with Council forces. This might represent an opportunity for intelligence gathering, or it might be a trap. Put it through. Let's hear what they have to say. The voice that emerged from the communication system was unlike anything in human experience. It spoke in perfect galactic standard, but the words seemed to come from multiple sources simultaneously, creating an eerie chorus effect. Defenders of this region, we acknowledge your resistance capabilities exceed predicted parameters. We offer temporary cessation of hostilities for information exchange purposes. Admiral Chun exchanged glances with her staff. After months of systematic extermination, the invaders suddenly wanted to talk. This is Admiral Chun of the Human Defense Fleet. State your intentions regarding this galaxy and its inhabitants. We are the collective consciousness designated as the Purification Protocol. Our function is elimination of chaotic elements that threaten universal order. Your species represents an unprecedented anomaly. Explain. Galactic civilizations follow predictable development patterns. Growth rates, technological advancement, social evolution, all conform to mathematical models. Your species violates every parameter. You advance too quickly, adapt too efficiently, survive too consistently. Admiral Chun felt a chill of understanding. You're not invading. You're debugging. Correct. The universe requires order. Civilizations that develop beyond acceptable parameters must be corrected or eliminated. The Council species were scheduled for gradual reduction over several millennia. Your species represents a critical error that requires immediate correction. The bridge fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity hadn't just been exiled by the Galactic Council. They had been marked for extinction by something far older and more powerful. What makes you think you can eliminate us? Admiral Chen asked. Previous resistance has been negligible. Council species possess technology centuries old, tactical doctrines unchanged for millennia, and genetic limitations that prevent rapid adaptation. You represent their maximum development potential. And yet we're still here. Temporary anomaly. Your defensive measures are innovative, but insufficient. We will adapt to your technology as we have adapted to all previous resistance. Admiral Chun cut the communication and turned to her staff. All ships, prepare for full engagement. The enemy has revealed their true nature, and negotiation is impossible. We're fighting for the survival of every innovative species in the galaxy. The final battle began as the main invasion fleet reached Sanctuary Station. Over 300 unknown vessels faced the combined Human Council Defense Force of 800 ships. But numbers meant little when the enemy could rewrite the laws of physics. All vessels, implement Protocol Omega, Admiral Chen commanded. Across the defensive line, human ships activated their most advanced technologies. The Titan-class dreadnoughts revealed weapons that no Council species had ever imagined. Reality stabilizers that prevented local physics manipulation, causality missiles that struck targets before they were fired, and quantum entanglement barriers that made it impossible for enemy weapons to achieve target lock. The Unknowns adapted quickly, but not quickly enough. For every countermeasure they developed, human innovation produced 3 new approaches. Ships designed for outer rim survival proved surprisingly effective against reality manipulation attacks. Their adaptation rate is slowing, reported Dr. Stevens. They're dealing with technologies that violate their understanding of proper development patterns. They can't predict our next innovation because we're developing outside their mathematical models. The battle raged for 18 hours across 3 star systems. Human losses were significant. Nearly 200 ships destroyed and thousands of crew members lost. But the Unknowns were learning what no galactic civilization had ever taught them. that some species refused to follow the rules. Enemy fleet withdrawing, reported Sensor Officer Kim. They're falling back toward the galactic core. Admiral Chen couldn't believe what she was hearing. Confirm that report. Confirmed. The invasion fleet is in full retreat. They're abandoning their positions and moving away from human space. The celebration that erupted across the defensive line was premature. Admiral Chen knew this was not victory, it was reprieve. All ships, maintain defensive positions. Dr. Stevens, analysis of enemy withdrawal. The collective appears to be retreating to reassess their approach. Our resistance has provided data that contradicts their models of galactic development. They need time to develop new solutions. How much time? Unknown. But, Admiral, the implications are staggering. We may have just saved galactic civilization by proving that innovative species can resist universal standardization. Over the following weeks, refugee reports from across the galaxy confirmed the pattern. The unknown fleet had withdrawn from all occupied territories, leaving behind damaged infrastructure, but no ongoing threat. The systematic extermination had ended as suddenly as it began. Prime Counselor Yithera arrived at Sanctuary Station aboard one of the last surviving Council ships. Her meeting with Admiral Chun was brief, but historic. Humanity has saved us all, she admitted, her pride clearly wounded by the admission. We apologize for our previous treatment of your species. The Council formally requests the restoration of human membership. Admiral Chen's response was polite, but firm. The Council is welcome to establish diplomatic relations with humanity, but we're no longer interested in membership in your organization. Why not? Because we've learned something important over the past 5 years. Civilizations that ask permission to grow will always be limited by the imagination of those granting permission. Humanity prefers to write its own rules. 6 months later, the Haven Cluster had become the fastest-growing region in the galaxy. Council species arrived daily seeking trade agreements, research partnerships, and defensive alliances with the civilization that had stopped the Great Purification. Admiral Chun, now promoted to Fleet Admiral of the Outer Rim Defense Force, stood again on the observation deck of Haven Station. Construction crews were expanding the facility to accommodate delegations from across the galaxy. But the visitors came as petitioners now, not rulers. Status report, she requested from her aide. 14 new colonies established this month. Population growth remains at 20% annually. The migration from Council space shows no signs of slowing down. Military status? Fleet strength now exceeds 2,000 vessels. Every human colony maintains its own defense force. Total personnel under arms approaches 10 million across all services. And our friends the Collective? Deep space monitoring shows no activity since their withdrawal. But intelligence estimates they're still out there, probably developing new approaches for dealing with innovative species. Admiral Chen nodded. Humanity had won a battle, not a war. But they had proven something important to the galaxy, and to themselves, that some civilizations refuse to be limited by others' expectations. The exile that was intended as punishment had become humanity's greatest opportunity. Free from oversight and restriction, they had developed into something the galaxy had never seen before, a civilization that grew stronger under pressure and more innovative when challenged. As she watched ships from across the galaxy dock at human stations, Admiral Chun reflected on the irony. The Galactic Council had tried to contain humanity by exiling them to the edge of nowhere. Instead, they had given humanity the perfect environment to become everything they were capable of being. The Outer Rim was no longer humanity's prison. It had become their kingdom, and the galaxy was finally learning to respect the species that refused to ask permission to reach for the stars.